Good morning. I'm Ladina Boo from Stockton, Missouri, and our show is Trials and Triumphs.
Mhm.
We just try to make people understand that even though you go through bad times, that doesn't mean you have to stay there. You can pull yourself out of it no matter what the situation may be. And um, for most of us here, that includes God. We must find our God and know that He is wanting the best for us. Now, my guest today is Billy Spencer. He is also from Stockton, Missouri,
Mhm.
originally, and he is now you're director of the house for Hope Homes, are you not? One of the houses?
I'm a senior house leader at Joshua House
Mm-hmm.
for Straight Street Ministries.
Oh, he has a history of drug abuse and prison time and all kinds of stuff. And so, why don't you tell us how you ended up being at Hope Homes?
Well,
How'd you
straight,
get
straight.
there? Yeah, straight street. How
Yeah.
did, let's go with, how you got into your drug addiction and things like that.
Well, I pretty much come from a broken home and everything, alcoholic father, um, which I love. We ended up having a good relationship before he passed, and I love my dad. Um, I had an addiction for about 20 years of drinking and everything, and I ended up getting into drugs later on at 41 years old. Um, I had lost my third child, and I just gave up on life. I ended up thought that was a way to wash it out.
Mm-hmm.
The drugs and everything. I was with a girl that was a user too, and um, I made some bad choices and
Mm-hmm.
everything.
That third child, he died from the drug usage during pregnancy,
Yes,
did he not?
yes. He had a
Mm-hmm.
heroin and meth in his system. I was not a user at that time, and after a while of you know dealing with the problems and it eating at me and trying to get her the help she needed, I just forgot about myself, and I ended up. I was involved in the ministry, local ministry in Bolivar, where I was for a while, and I ended up dropping out after me and her, she got pregnant with a baby, and I ended up feeling a lot of conviction
Mm-hmm.
for the wrongdoing and everything. So I stepped down, and things just went down from there. It was nothing but downhill after that.
Slippery slope at that point, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yes, yes. It
You know,
always is.
was yours basically a meth addiction, or were
Yes.
you into other drugs at that point?
I was into every drug I can get my hands on, but I I probably done heroin a couple dozen times, fentanyl a few times. I've done hallucinogens of every type. I didn't get into pills, um, but meth was my choice. I got into cooking it, and then I started using it and
Mm-hmm.
everything, and it was nothing but hell.
Yeah, it's one of
And
those things that gets into your
yeah,
brain, and then all of a sudden, your body thinks it needs it all the time when it comes
yes,
to meth.
yes, I couldn't get away from it. My drinking addiction, of course, the town I grew up in at that time and everything, you didn't hear of meth. I didn't even really hear of pot or anything.
Mm-hmm.
When we grew up as kids, the cops were always driving around looking for the keg parties.
Right.
And as I got older, the drugs were getting worse and everything. And you heard about them looking for the drug dealers, or where'd you get the dope bag, or anything like
Yeah.
that.
When I was growing up around Stockton and everything, you never heard about drug issues
Yeah,
ever.
yeah.
We had our fair share of alcoholics, and we still have our fair share
Hmm.
of alcoholics, but um, unfortunately, that's a legal drug. And it was taking away from the families. And then,
Yes.
whenever I came back to Stockton, it's been almost 20 years now. Um, at that point, it was drugs everywhere. And, my
Yes.
next door neighbor's son died of a drug overdose. And, it's my cousin's ex-wife, and their child
Hmm.
and things like that. You never heard in small town before, but now
No.
it's rampant.
Yeah, and it's so sad, and I tell people, it doesn't matter whether it's legal or not, because there's some states that are starting to allow medicinal meth
Hmm.
for ADHD and hallucinogens for medical purposes and stuff like that. And I totally disagree with it, but it anything that takes you away from God, hurts your finances in your family, and hinders your
Hmm.
anything,
Well,
to keep you away from God is just wrong.
yeah. Well, my guest last week, he actually got addicted to meth because none of the pain medications were working for him
Hmm.
after a major accident. And so his physician is the one that recommended that he try illegal drugs and try using meth to control
Hmm.
his pain. And that's how he ended up addicted, is because a
Hmm.
physician told him to do it.
Hmm.
You know, that breaks my heart.
Yes, yes, and the thing is, it actually, I had pains from injuries, and that was some psychologically and physically why I did it, and mostly psychological. It did, but the real pain came later.
Hmm.
Trying to get off of that stuff, the pain and then the psychological aspect of it and everything. It's terrible. Meth is.
Hmm. I don't understand. Heroin scares me to death. I've
Yeah.
seen too many people overdose on that. And right now, fentanyl is
Yes.
making me absolutely insane because I've had two young men in my life die from smoking pot that was laced with fentanyl.
Yes.
And you don't know that. You don't know what you're getting a hold of when you're out there buying stuff.
They're lacing meth with fentanyl now too. And I know back whenever I was doing the dealing and the cooking and stuff, you didn't even people were looking for heroin and fentanyl. And 4 or 5 years ago, you didn't hear of it around Springfield area. You'd
Hmm.
have to go to St. Louis or farther, and that's how bad this epidemic's gotten. It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
It's killing our children, our young people, and
Yes.
it just makes me insane some days. Um, the fentanyl itself right now, like I said, these were two young men. One was 20 years
Hmm.
old and one was 19,
Hmm.
and they both died.
Hmm.
And, you know, used to be it's like, okay, you're going to smoke a little pot. I'm not going to judge you on that at all. I want you to stay away from the hard stuff. But when they're lacing your marijuana with fentanyl, you're in trouble.
Hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And they're not paying attention to that. Now, you've been involved in a few different programs around. I know you said you had been at Victory Mission and
Hmm.
Sling and Stone. So, which of
Hmm.
the programs have you been involved with so far?
Um, oh my gosh, I've been in Heartland Hospital when I was younger. I had some mental issues. It was from with my alcoholic father,
Mm-hmm.
and I had some psychological problems. Pretty much been on. Uh, I was pretty much on psychological drugs most of my life. Um, Doctors like pushing that. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of them do, and I. I've been in Farmington treatment. I've been in Clinton treatment. Um, oh my gosh, Sling and Stones. I was actually not in their program. They started that afterwards. I was just actually involved in the ministry itself
Mm-hmm.
and part of the ministry team before I fell. And then, of course, I went to prison and everything and got out. home plan to Victory Mission Restoration Program, which was
Mm-hmm.
a good, tight program. And that's what I needed to adjust and everything, because I couldn't have made it if I didn't have something like that.
Right.
I was, even the few years I was in prison, I was so institutionalized just those few years,
Mm-hmm.
and then I come down to Straight Street, and it was part of my home church and everything. And I could have moved out on my own, but um, I love the program. I love what it's about, and love the church, and they do a great thing there, and they care about and target people like,
Mm-hmm.
what I've been through and everything, the broken and the people that have different types of addictions, homelessness, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They want to get them back on their feet and be self-sufficient. And
Teach them how to
yeah,
live a good life instead
yeah,
of just from one fix to another fix or whatever the case may be.
yes, be part of the community again,
Yeah.
and be a good, have good rapport with our local law enforcement, other churches. It's what it's about.
Mm-hmm. And discipleship, I
Yes.
know that Straight Street and so forth. I know they've been very big on discipleship as far as
Yes, and
making.
that's what I love.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Jesus called you out two by two to do, to
Mm-hmm.
make disciples of nations. And that's our job. And to, whether you're broken or not, just to, but if you don't know Jesus, I call you broken,
Right.
you know, plain.
Now, you have how many children?
I have three kids.
3 kids that are living,
Yes.
or and you've lost 3.
Three. Yeah.
Um, do you have a good relationship with your kids after all of this? Did they have a problem with you when you were doing drugs, or?
They, they actually didn't know.
Oh,
Um,
really?
they actually didn't know. Kept it really hidden. I think they suspected I was back to drinking more
Mm-hmm.
than anything. And the gal I lived with, it was kind of disastrous, and I was on the drugs, and um, they they kind of figured she was on drugs, because at first I didn't lie to him. I wasn't on him then, but she
Mm-hmm.
was. I didn't lie to him, and I said she needed help and all that. And then finally, after I got on there and everything, I got a hold of my ex-wife, and I said, "You need to come get the boys. I got issues."
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want them to be, I needed help, but I didn't get help for a while after that. I just
Well,
kept on.
well, you knew when to call her and say, I can't
Yes,
handle this right now.
yes.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
she struggled for a while because she was still dealing with our youngest going through the cancer stuff he was going through and everything, but she made it through it. She's doing great now and all that. Um, she's a good mom and everything. We have a good rapport with each other,
Mm-hmm.
and good mama,
You
good
have a
mama.
good rapport with your sons then?
Oh, great, great. My
Oh,
sons, I still tend to beat myself up sometimes, and I'll say, man, I really messed up. I'm still sorry, boys. I should have been there for this and this and this. And they say, oh, Dad, it's past. Leave it alone. Be quiet. You know, they're they're very forgiving, loving boys. They don't cuss. They don't, they always went to church with me. They love church, and they they're doing good in school. I mean, they are. Their mom's raising them right, doing
mm-hmm.
good.
Yeah.
And she consults with me on everything, their school and everything. They're lifting weights, and one of my boys is wanting to get in football, and
Oh, my.
yeah, my other one wants to go in the Marines in 3 or 4 years, and
Good.
so
My brother was a Marine. My
yeah,
uncle was a Marine.
yeah, yeah. He's got Marine stuff already. He's 15, and he's already got Marine stuff. And I'm so proud of him. But I preach to him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I tell him, don't get in any habits. Stay away from the alcohol, and even stay away from cigarettes. Stay away from all that, because military can be tempting too,
Right.
you know,
They've got their
with the
places.
guys.
Hmm. But, it does teach a sense of responsibility
Yes.
and how to handle yourself. And I
Different
think,
type of structure, which they probably need.
mhm, that's one of the things I liked about Israel. You get out of high school, you got 2 years military service somewhere.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So it does teach so much to them. And,
Yes.
I like that. I've often said the United States needed to do that.
Yes. Yes.
Get them out of high school and then put them in the military for a couple of years, and I don't think we'd have as many issues as we have right now in this
Hmm.
country if they had done that. So,
Yes. Yeah, my middle one, he's 14. I mean, they're both ready to switch ages. They're a month apart, April and May, and the end of April and the beginning of May. And my 14-year-old, he used to want to be a preacher, but I don't know if he still wants to be. But he still,
mhm.
still got the Bible and still talks about God to me, and I'm praying to God he does. But
That makes your heart feel good,
yes,
doesn't
it
it, when they're
does.
doing that?
Yes, yes, it does, because we always, I used to, when I first had Xander, my 12-year-old. I used to say, "Who's number one?" They'd say, "You, Daddy," and I said, "Awesome." But after he got sick and everything, I even have this video of his song. I'm not too crazy about him dancing to it, but whatever made him happy and got him to exercising, because he was very um, weak at the time. I was happy for, but after he dropped the phone, I said, "Okay, who's number one?" And he said, "Jesus. Jesus is number one."
Amen.
And before he had his tumor removed from his head, I said, "Who's number one?" He said, "Jesus." And that's a good. you
Yeah.
know,
It makes your heart feel good whenever
yes,
you've given him that structure to get through,
yeah,
and he's got something to lean on it right
yeah.
now. Now, now you've spent some time in prison, and you've been on parole a few times, in probation, and you've had some other family issues with regard to a stepfather type situation, and
Hmm.
you had yourself shot in the face at
Hmm.
one point, did you
Yes,
not?
yes, yes.
And that one put you back in prison for a little while, even though you were the victim at that point. But
Yeah.
you ended up, that was close to the end of your parole or probation, was it not?
It was actually the beginning of it. They charged me with assault. Um, they said it was. They went against me and said it was. They were protecting themselves and everything, which that wasn't the case. But it's. I got shot. I had about a year worth of surgeries, therapy, and everything like that. They had me on morphine. Morphine didn't cut it. And then I switched to something I thought I'd never do. I switched to pot for about 3 weeks, and it didn't take care of the pain.
Mm-hmm.
So then I went back to drinking, of all things. I was a drinker for a long time, and the drinking pretty much broke up my marriage, turned me into a mean person. I felt a sense of meanness and pride because I didn't like my wife taking care of me or anybody being at the home, like home health and all that, and going through the physical therapy. I was very independent and I was too prideful and wanted to do everything on my own. And I was walking around with a pole with a feeding tube at home and everything like that. But I ended up coming through it and beating a lot what the doctor said, but I ended up getting a warrant finally, and losing my marriage. And I was very verbal to that girl, and she was a good woman, and I ended up getting put on probation.
Mm-hmm.
And but the good thing is, um, the guy that shot me and him's got a good relationship now. I forgave him. He forgave me. It's long forgotten by the grace of God. I love him to death. Um, he takes care of my mom, and I love my mom to death and everything. And it's just like nothing ever happened. you know?
You know, mamas are always in the background praying for you to come
Yeah.
back out.
Yeah. And I probably could have handled things different. I know I could have. And he probably would have too. But, it's a stepping stone. It's probably something. I always say God takes the darkness and brings it to the light with obedience and faithfulness. And that's what he did.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see the light after that gunshot. You'd think I would have, but I didn't. But it took a few years, but I did
Mm-hmm.
finally. And I'm sure it changed him in a lot of ways. And it changed me and even my mom. And
Probably shocked him all to pieces that he even did it.
yeah, I think it did. And he's a good man,
Mm-hmm.
you know. He,
But, things like that happen, and you have to understand
mhm,
that when someone's got a problem, if they're an alcoholic or a drug addict
mhm,
or, sex addict, whatever the case may be,
mhm.
you still have to love them and you have to pray for them and you have
Yes,
to try to figure out how to bring them out of it. But the only person who can do it is the individual themselves. You
exactly.
had to find your way, did you not?
Yeah. Yes, I did. And it's a biblical thing, you can, it's like me being a house leader, whoops. Uh, it's like me being a house leader. You can only pour into them so much. And then sometimes it's biblical. Bring forth to the church or bring a guy with you,
Mm-hmm.
and confess to your brother, and then take them. If they don't change, take them to the church. If they don't change, and then, you know,
Yeah.
it comes a time you have to wash your hands. It doesn't mean the person in the next house or another place might reach that person.
Mm-hmm.
But the bottom line is, you're right. They got to make that choice. They got to be the ones that change their ways and everything. And the only way they can do that is with Jesus.
Right.
That's the only way.
You found your walk with Christ, and,
Yes.
so now you are trying to help others with the same types of
Yes.
addictions and so forth, trying to find their walk and hopefully restore them to their families if they have
Yes.
children and so forth. You have a good relationship with your kids and your ex-wife, and
Hmm.
a lot of people come out of their addictions and they've lost all that family.
Yes.
They've been given up on. One of the things I try to tell people is don't give up on them. You got to pray
Yeah.
for them,
Yeah.
but don't support their habits.
Yeah.
If you keep
Hmm.
giving them money for whatever, I had a lady that she gave her son money every time he asked for it just so he wouldn't come home,
Yeah.
you know, and he's a horribly addicted to drugs, and he's been
Yeah.
on them so long that, he's got the physical twitches and stuff like that.
That's enabling them, yeah, to a sense. Even if you didn't want to come home, you're giving them money and enabling them. And that's
Um,
it's not the way, but
you can love your children without enabling them.
exactly,
You know.
exactly. My mom, um, when I went to prison, it kind of surprised her because I kept the drug habit from her too. And she was so proud of me, thought I was doing good and everything because I had been for years.
Hmm.
And she was hurt. She kind of washed her hands.
Hmm.
I still called her. She accepted the call. She sent me a little money in prison, but not much,
Yeah.
and that's fine enough to get hygiene and just the bare essentials. And I love her for that.
Hmm.
Hard love's a good thing sometimes. You
That
know.
was everybody kept telling me I was mean whenever I refused to do various things for my sons and
Hmm.
stuff and the kids that live with me. It's like, well, I go bail them out of jail. It's like, no, I can't.
Yeah.
If they can't call me and they can't do what they know is right, I'm not going to help them
Hmm.
in their failure.
Hmm.
And that's really what it came down to. It was a failure of their heart, and they knew right from wrong and so forth. And it's like,
Amen.
at the end of that, it's like, no, I'm not going to support you in that,
Yeah.
you know. And so many parents just give them the money, or, buy them the high dollar attorney or something like that. At some point you have to let them
hmm
struggle their own way through, don't you?
Yeah. When I was younger, I was ornery some, and I had one side of the grandparents that kept bailing me out and everything, and finally my grandmother, my mom's mother, says, leave his butt in there, leave his butt in there, let him think about it for a while. And I ended up going, that's when I did, I think it was 92, 93. I did my first stint, and I went to Farmington, and I was on that phone a lot. Mom, you get a lawyer, get me out of here. And so that ain't how it worked. I was young.
Hmm.
I didn't know no better. And she was showing some hard love, and it was hard for
Hmm.
her.
It
And
broke my heart every time I
yeah,
had to do it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And, and it's still, I understand where she comes from, because, it's just like the guys I meet, and the new residents, or people on the street, it breaks my heart to see that, and I want to help them,
Hmm.
but there's just certain things you can do and everything. You can direct them to the way, you can preach to them about Jesus, but they're the ones that's going to have to be the ones that gets that help and gets down on their knees and pray.
Yeah,
We
they've got
can,
to take that first step, don't
yeah,
they?
exactly, exactly. Because I pray with people as much as possible, as much as
Hmm.
I can, and talk to them and everything. But they got to make that decision. The ultimate.
It's a hard decision for most people, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
You get so set in your ways and the feeling that the drugs or the alcohol bring you, that you just can't
hmm
bring yourself to step away from it, in some fashion.
Yeah, yeah. I don't live too far from C Street, Commercial Street, and I walk up to Big Mama's, give me coffee, or go to Artisans.
Hmm.
Pretty good little stores up there. They've cleaned it up, but you always see on the way, you're always meeting people and everything. And I try to always be open and talk to them, and stop and hand them a card, and get to know their story and everything. And you know what? That brings joy and blessings on my heart,
Hmm.
just to talk to them. And uh, even if it don't reach them,
Hmm.
maybe a year from
You
now.
planted something in their
Yes,
mind at that point.
yes. I know a lot. My grandfather, there's been my grandpa Sutton, and he's just said things to me years ago, and it didn't click until a few years ago. It's just like, and there's been some pastors that said things to me, Randy Hayward, Kenny Batson,
Hmm.
which, they've said things to me, and it's just like, I listened, but it didn't sink in,
Hmm.
and it really hit me,
Yeah.
later.
Kenny Batson, he had his go round with being the bad boy
Yeah.
and going to prison and so forth.
Eight different stints.
And he
Yeah.
has an awesome ministry over there
Yeah.
now
It's
and so
growing.
forth.
It's doing really good.
And Randy Hayward, like you say, I adore Randy. Randy was the first pastor I met when I came
hmm
back to Stockton from Kansas City. And he really has a handle on the Bible. And I think he really has a heart to try to do things,
Jailhouse Rock.
Jailhouse Rock,
A lot
yes.
of the prisons here in Missouri are so blessed by him, because they get the Bibles and pamphlets and everything by
And all
him.
the Bible
Yes.
studies that they mail
Yes.
out.
Yes.
It's an awesome ministry, and I love the story of how he decided to start it, because
hmm
he talked about driving down the road and having to stop and get out and pray, and he saw the prison bars and
hmm
everything that day when the
Yeah. I
whole.
remember that story.
Hmm.
Yeah. It was
Yeah,
touching.
that was an amazing story for me. I just loved hearing him talk about it. Uh, but Randy's got, he's had some cancer and he's
hmm
stepped off the pulpit and everything, but he is still one that if you see him out, he'll stop and pray with you or do whatever you need to do if you
Mhm.
just to make you feel comfortable and make you feel good that day.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that they do at the Hope Homes, isn't it? Don't they take people out to evangelize a little bit or
Yep.
do
Every
discipleship?
every Saturday at 3:30, Hope Homes or just whoever wants to join in, go out and it's called Beyond the Walls, and just go out to different parts of the neighborhood, whether it's John B. Hughes or, I mean, we picked Andrew Bieber's ahead of it, but pick the roughest part,
Hmm.
and that's great.
Right.
I find that awesome. You pick the roughest part where we need to evangelize. We'll hit 7, 8 blocks, whatever, you
Hmm.
know, whatever we have time for, whatever God, puts it on our heart to do. Go out there, and Hope Homes is always involved in that,
Yeah.
and some powerful guys, and they're doing some good things over there at Hope Homes.
Oh, well, one of the ministers, he died a couple of years ago, that was here, Dennis Code. He has Crosswalk Ministry. He had Crosswalk Ministries. His wife has it now,
Mm-hmm.
and the Crosswalk of Hope. And I remember when
Mm,
Dennis first got saved, he was a drug addict. He'd been in prison 4 or 5 times. Yeah, they told him he was mentally ill and all kinds of stuff. And one day the Lord healed him.
mm,
And from that point, he was just full on for God. You couldn't
mm,
stop him. And he would take a cross and he would walk up and down C Street with the cross
mm-hmm.
and talk to people. And, he's one of those that took in a bunch of homeless people and helped
Powerful.
them get back on their feet. And then he was
Yes.
taking guys from the prisons and taking them in for,
Hmm.
a home plan.
Yes,
Yeah.
because a lot of people wouldn't give people like I was, um, a second look,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, I love. That's why I love about Straight Street and Freedom City, and there's a lot of other ones in
Mm-hmm.
town. Freeway Ministries, New Beginnings, but where I'm at, I love John's vision.
Right.
Pastor John, I love his vision. Right there, they love you from the beginning.
Right.
They don't care where you've been, what you have. You're washed by the blood of Christ. It's over with.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
I know the first time I even stepped into Pastor John's church, they hugged me at the front door.
Yeah, yeah. They are loving people, and they I couldn't ask for a better bunch of
Hmm.
people. I can't see myself anywhere else really.
Yeah.
You
And
know.
I know when I went out in the parking lot that day and there was a girl, she'd walked in and felt like she probably didn't fit. So she turned around and she walked out. And my husband was out in the car because he was having breathing issues. He's got COPD and
Hmm.
emphysema. And he stopped her because she was crying.
Hmm.
And I went out to check on him. And so then I ended up praying with her. And there was like 6 of us in the middle of the COVID epidemic out there hugging each other in the
Yeah.
parking lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I was with Sling and Stones, Pastor Tom says, I don't care if they're drunk and high. Come on in. Maybe the Holy Spirit will clean them up right there.
Right.
As long as they're not disruptive, bring them in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
He
can't
wasn't
just,
judgmental.
don't be judgmental. And, you have to reach out to them because you may be the only person who does.
Yes.
And you are responsible for those that you come in contact with, really,
Hmm.
to a degree. The Lord wants you to reach out to
Hmm.
them. Um, I know that small towns, I live in a small town,
Hmm.
everybody knows what you're doing.
Yeah. Still love that town though.
Yeah,
It's
I
my
love the
hometown.
town and I will always love the town, but it is one of those towns where if you get in trouble with the law, all your neighbors going to know it because it's going to be in the weekly paper.
And there goes your testament. There goes your testament if you're doing good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone's going to know. And I think that while I love our newspaper, I love our weekly newspaper.
Hmm.
Um, sometimes it breaks my heart because I see the same names over and over and over again
Yeah.
for drug offenses or things like that.
Yeah.
And I just want to go out and find them and say, come home with me for a while. Let's see if
Yeah.
we can't get past this.
That's one way to that's one way to find the people and minister to them is by
Mm-hmm.
knowing who they are. Me, I'm just the opposite. I stay away from the Netflix. I stay away from the news. And people tell me about Ukraine and Russia, and I said, they're fighting. You know, I I stay away from all that, and even the newspaper because it just breaks my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I guess my media is within God and
Mm-hmm.
what God puts on my heart. To you know,
The newspaper is about the only thing I read other than what's on my computer.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
I avoid all the big, deep stuff.
USA Today and all that.
Yeah, I'm not going there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just don't watch TV
But,
anymore.
we get in, but like I say, it's a small town. Everybody's going to know what you're doing.
Hmm.
And you're going to get a whole bunch of them that are going to judge you
Hmm.
and keep that same judgment forever.
Hmm.
And we need to remember to look at the individual with fresh eyes.
Hmm.
If they've found the Lord,
Hmm.
you can't be keeping all this other stuff against them.
Yeah,
The Lord forgave them. Why can't you?
yeah.
Yeah. Have you run into that when you've gone back to Stockton or anything?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. This is yeah, yeah, quite a bit actually. Every time I've gone back there, it's just like I actually got a speeding ticket once, and the judge says, "Are you back to getting into trouble? Are you doing wrong again?" And I said, "I've had a speeding ticket, and this is the first time I've gotten in any contact with the law for 10 years." It's a, but they all know me, know my
Mhm.
family. My family's been there for generations.
Must have been Joe Burrow Phillips or something.
Actually, before him,
Oh,
Joe Burrow Phillips was
wow.
actually my attorney.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes, he was. We done a lot of work for him and everything. So he's actually pretty tight with my grandpa, and he was my attorney at the time.
Hmm.
But no, he was a judge after that. He was a judge after that.
Small town. We all know everybody
Yeah.
everywhere.
Oh yeah, I know all of them. Doc Butcher, all of them. Yeah.
Well, anyway, you have made a total turnaround from that time in your
Yes.
life, right?
Yes.
And you've now devoted your life to helping others and
Yes.
trying to keep them away from the drugs or the alcohol.
Hmm. Yes. I've had heroin in my hands without accountability. I've had cocaine. I've had meth. I've had needles. It didn't even affect me. It broke my heart that it was somebody's or was going to be somebody's, and I disposed of it. God healed me from all that.
Hmm.
I always keep my armor of God on.
Right.
But I know God healed me from that, and I haven't even the psychological meds they always said I'd be on.
Hmm.
I haven't taken them for in May. It'll be a year, and
Awesome.
whenever I heard that song, went down to the front of the altar and prayed, I felt a cleansing. I felt
Hmm.
clean, and God healed me from that.
It's a pleasant feeling to know that it won't grab you
Yes.
as long as you keep yourself protected,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. You got to protect your heart,
Hmm.
got to protect your mind. So that armor of God, put it on every morning before you get out
Exactly. I keep it on. I keep it on, and I for the grace that Jesus, gave all of us. He gave me that strength and
Mhm.
willingness, and I know what His will is for my life. And I'm going to keep moving forward and keep that vision up. And hopefully I feel it's within the ministry and within the church and everything. I want to keep helping others.
Well, I want to thank Billy for joining us here today. We're about out of time here, I see, since
Mm-hmm.
Matt was back there holding his finger up. But you need to remember that no matter what, if you run into somebody with a drug addiction, pray for them. If you
Amen.
got somebody in your family with a drug addiction, do not enable them. You
Amen.
know, find a program that will help you if you need it. And if not, give us a call. We'll find you someplace.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that there's a lot of programs that could help you, and we want everyone happy and healthy and not in prisons. And we just need that in our lives.
Yes.
It's too scary out there right now to try to get through everything on your own.
We all need Jesus
We do.
every day.
So we want to thank you for joining us today,
Thank you.
and you all have a good weekend or week.